I'm Mirna Sleiman, the founder and CEO of Fintech Galaxy. Humbled, honored, and super happy to be on the Voices of the Future with the one and only Tarek Qureshi.
There are special moments in life when you meet and find a true friend and a special friend. And Mirna is one of those. She is a genuine friend, and our development in this region has been sort of running simultaneously. It's a real pleasure and absolute privilege to have her here today on Voices of the Future. And she's a true leader. She is bringing about breakthrough. She's bringing about change. She's courageous. She's an amazing mother and a great person to be in this community, and she's making a difference. She's completely mad. So there you go.
I am.
Yes. And that's your introduction. So Mirna, welcome to Voices of the Future, and I would love to hear your voice and how you present yourself to the future generations, including your kids. So tell us about yourself.
Thank you, Tarek. I'm humbled and honored to be here on this program. I think it's Mad Voices of the Future, not Voices of the Future. It's really interesting times that we're going through. And you mentioned I'm a mother. I actually have to deal with 3 different generations because I have 3 kids, and every kid requires a different tool of communication and different tool of understanding. And the way I discussed university with my eldest is totally different from discussing university with my youngest. We'll come to that later. So my name is Mirna Sleiman. I'm Tarek's friend from the old days before we even set up our businesses.
Yeah.
I founded Fintech Galaxy more than 5 years ago. With one passion in mind and in heart, which is moving the needle on financial inclusion. We believe in inclusion. We believe in bringing financial services to every person on this planet. And we believe in, diversity and all of these things. So Fintech Galaxy is built around innovation and financial services, transformation, and of course, from a technical perspective, we're building an open finance platform that opens up the financial sector. The company was born 5 years ago, and we keep developing. There's not one dull moment. Before that, I was leading the public sector at Thomson Reuters, and before that, I was 10 years a financial journalist. And this decade of my life is the most exciting part of it, because it's all about humanity, building connections, understanding people, finding pain points, which resulted in me developing and launching Fintech Galaxy to solve the pain points that I've been writing about for years.
Yeah. So it's sort of connected the dots of your life. And I think my reinvention as a futurist about 6-7 years ago is a similar parallel, because people ask me, what is a futurist? And then I go through that process. And then I say, how do you become a futurist? And that's an interesting question. You don't go to university and do a master's in futurism. Well, you see it's starting there. But it was about connecting the dots and all of the aspects of my life. And then you look for the 10,000 hours of mastery. Which is, if you do something for 10,000 hours, you become a master. And you're getting there now. I'm getting there now. We are becoming masters in our own space. And at that stage, Mirna, we have internalized everything. We don't have to prepare or pretend or present or act. It's who we are. And I think we represent, that's the authenticity which mastery can actually bring to. So, and I really recognize that in you, that you do these things very naturally now, and that's amazing to see.
Thank you.
You're not saying anything. No, I'm just joking. You're supposed to say fun things now. So, let's go back to how it all started. Your earliest memories. I know you have a very interesting story about how in Lebanon you saw some difficulties, and then you came through that. Because I think humanizing your beginning and connecting it to where you are today and then building it into the future is really the ultimate story that we'd like to share.
See, our life is a series of stories, and people with no stories have no meaningful life. And if you look at all the entrepreneurs around the world, and most of them, and a lot of the leaders around us, those who've been through a very tough life actually developed something that changed the world. And changing can be very minimal or can be huge, but they do actually change the world. Yes, I am Lebanese, and I was born during the civil war in Lebanon, which lasted for 15 years. So imagine you are a child who is, the one thing that you enjoy is just hiding from missiles and bombs, and you think it's a game, but your parents are freaking out because that's your life. We appreciate the very little things about life. Unlike, unfortunately, many of our kids now, they just take a lot of things for granted. So I lost my house when I was a little kid, and we had to move back to our hometown. And later in 2006, I lost my house again, and that's when I was an adult and a mother. And that, for a short period of time, it actually traumatized me, because out of nowhere, and suddenly you wake up in the morning with kids and a backpack, and that's it. Your pictures, your memories, your everything you owned, your apartment, your furniture is all gone, and you got to start from scratch. But the most important thing that actually affected me was how tied are we to distance and physical spaces. And so they disconnect you from a pharmacy, they disconnect you from a bank, they disconnect you from anything. And without having a digital means of buying things or accessing your financial bank accounts on a mobile phone, it becomes very difficult. And that's when I realized that brick and mortar banking is not sustainable, and financial inclusion is the only way that you can provide a decent life to everyone. Unfortunately, planet Earth is full of disaster. If it's not a war, it's a hurricane. If it's not a hurricane, it's a tsunami. But at the end of the day, we got to build life for a good future, and we have to take everything into consideration. So I had to leave Lebanon. I moved to Dubai. Dubai offered me an opportunity that, that was rare. And I grew as a journalist, and I invested a lot of time understanding financial markets and mergers and acquisitions. And I reported on very interesting things across the region. I was managing sovereign wealth funds. So you can imagine what KIA and QIA and ADIA and those were doing back then, before the financial crisis, and even after the financial crisis in 2008. So I reported on the boom and the bust. And I've known you, Tariq, since I was a journalist. So we've been through a lot together, and we learned a lot. Yeah. And the most important thing that I learned is how easy it is to fall. How easy it is to fall. So many, CEOs and wealthy people, they lost everything they had, everything material they had. And the value of people is when they have nothing, basically. That's the value of people, because you can lose a job, and you can lose money, and you can lose an asset, but you can't lose your honesty, trust, integrity, belief in yourself. So all the human side, the human side of things. So just like we went through a crisis of mortgage crisis or financial crisis, or any crisis can come our way, maybe technology crisis with all the crazy things that are happening these days, anything can fall apart, right? As long as we stay true to our values and principles and stay grounded to our human connection, that's what matters at the end.
Let's get a little bit deeper into financial inclusion, Mirna, because it has been one of my adventures, and one of the things that I also talk a lot about is financial inclusion, because over a couple of billion people, even to this day, are not in, actually probably it's more than that, more like 3 billion, are not onto the grid itself. So they are out of the system and out of the game in many ways. So they can be, and particularly now with all the new things coming in education, in business, and commerce, and so on, without financial inclusion, without a digital connectivity and a digital identity, we really can't make any progress. What inspired you specifically in terms of financial inclusion? Because it must have been a moment in time you said, I need to bring 1 billion people online. Was that a catalyst, or was it something different?
See, financial inclusion is, I just mentioned how important it became to me after 2006, when I realized that every person has the right to be on the financial system, and every person has the right to be bankable, and every person has the right to access financial services. And then I started doing a lot of research, and I realized that even though in our case it was a lot of wars, in so many other cases and other markets, it's actually the distance that prevents people from getting into the banking sector. And with the technology and all of that, I realized that one day, and that was always, simmering inside of me, that one day after I am done reporting and pushing and lobbying regulators and banks and innovators and everybody, once I'm done lobbying for change, I'm gonna carry the torch and just do the change myself. Even if it's a little thing, I wanted to make that difference. And when I started Fintech Galaxy, I started with innovation. So the first thing that I wanted to do is to teach banks how to think in a very innovative way. And I learned from them as well. I mean, we might think that it's probably an easy thing to do trade finance, but actually it's a very complicated matter. So when you meet as two brains and somebody teaches you how to think like a banker, and you teach the bankers how to think like innovators, that's where innovation comes. And I think we've done so many innovative ideas where we managed to bring something new to an application that enables adults, bankable adults, to get access to bank accounts. And also remember, financial inclusion is all about getting the unbanked banked, and also the underbanked, giving them a better opportunity. So SMEs, for example, I'll tell you something, Tariq. 2 days back, I wanted to set up another bank account for Fintech Galaxy for many reasons. And we already bank with one UAE-based bank, and I wanted to get another bank account. And the CEO of that bank, you know what he says? He says, oh, you're into fintech, I can't give you a bank account. And oh, you're a free zone, I can't either give you a bank account. I'm sorry. And I'm like, okay, first of all, I'm fintech, so you're supposed to be nice to me because I'm calling for financial inclusion. And second, you should give me a bank account because I'm based in Dubai. I'm born in Dubai. I'm actually a UAE-based company, and I already have a bank account. So what's the risk if I'm a free zone? What's the risk? So some things need to dramatically change in the bureaucracy inside banks, and governments need to do much more than that.
Yes, indeed. And I speak about incumbent banks and challenger institutions. You're a challenger institution. So the incumbent banks actually get very, very uncomfortable with challengers. And I think that is one of the things that obviously needs to be addressed. I also do the 10 secrets of the future of banking. And that's something else that scares the hell out of them. And the first secret there is that the future of banking is going to be behavioral, experiential, and contextual, as opposed to based around products and services. The second thing I say that banking is actually very simple. It has 3 big components: stored value, which is your bank account, the transactions, and lending and credit. You put a box around it, you put it in your pocket, put it in the cloud, you've got yourself a bank.
So, exactly. Exactly.
And I said, so banks are really about managing that utility, these and building stuff around this utility and bringing the marginal cost down to as close to zero as possible. They're not used to that. I mean, they still want to pay $40 for a Swift transaction, and you can send it on something for near free. So, and then the last thing I say, which scares the hell out of them, is for the future of banking, is that you have to stop hiring bankers. So you need data scientists, you need anthropologists, you need people who are looking at both the behavioral side and the technological side and the human side to be able to provide that service, that utility for the future. Sorry, it's a long monologue, but I wanted to share this with you because am I on the right track? Is that this is where the future is actually evolving, since you're the expert?
I agree with everything you said, and the good part of it is bankers themselves have started to accept this reality. I'm seeing more and more banks hiring platform people or product. Usually in a bank, product is marketing. It's more of the same.
Yeah.
But now, no, you see them hiring products, that you see them wanting to learn. We do a lot of sessions training bankers on open banking and open finance. We come up with use cases, and sometimes they really go very imaginary and a bit wild with how to implement innovation. But yes, in reality, we are going into that direction, and it's going to take some time before. Remember, at the end of the day, there is a lot of risk as well. Let's admit it. There's a lot of risk with technology, with cyber crimes, with regulatory fines. Banks try as much as they can to make a difference in how they, do customer experience, for example, or customer service, the hyper personalization and all of that. Now, at least you're getting closer to, a bank offering you something that matters to you. Okay.
Yeah.
And while a few years back, they know you don't like a certain coffee, and they keep sending you messages about that coffee. You should look at my bank account and realize that I never drink that coffee. So why do you keep marketing it to me? So they are moving there, but there are still certain requirements that prevent them. And it's not only the banks, it's the whole system. You still need a bank statement to go get a visa. Like, that's a no-brainer. There are certain things that that can be easily changed. You still get a credit score that has no clue what is going on in your other side of life. Or maybe if you have tons of debt back home and you live in certain country, there is no connection between that and here. Or maybe if you don't pay your rent on time and you have so many defaults, they don't show up on your credit score. So there's a lot that can be done with technology, with AI, with all this machine learning. And what makes me comfortable and happy is they have accepted it, and they are now working on making that change. Yeah.
One of the unique things about Fintech Galaxy, from me as an outsider looking in, is that you're an aggregator, and you are literally a bridge between the SMEs on the one side and the incumbent banks on the other side. You're there with the investors on another side, and you're also there with the regulators and the people who are making stuff happen. So you are effectively sitting in the middle. You're the sort of the conductor of the orchestra. So you're the maestro, and you're basically doing a thing. How do you find that kind of interaction between these various forces that are there? And each one of them is now becoming a very important force by itself. Each one of them individually and collectively, there's obviously that abrasion.
See, but in our DNA, we tend to choose the rough course, the rough route, and we don't take the easy way out. And when we started Fintech Galaxy, we wanted to, as you said, connect banks and innovators, or banks and fintechs, to come up with new ways of offering financial services and banking. And then after some time, we realized that, okay, doing that connection is not enough. You got to give them an environment where they can do the testing. So we developed our product offering from a simple platform that provides innovation and a marketplace to actually a sandbox. So we offered a sandbox, an API sandbox that provides basically a safe environment for fintechs to do a prototype or a POC on certain use cases using dummy data from the banks. And that went really well. Everybody loved it because you're not touching their production environment. Yeah. And then we realized that actually there are two more elements that we need to do to complete the circle, to close the loop. The first one is we need to help banks abide by the regulations while innovating, because they're scared. They're scared, you know, it's not easy to innovate and then go against the regulation. So we developed something called, our platform's name is Finx, F-I-N-X, with the logo that has the Phoenix bird beacon, because we believe that the banking and financial service is resurrecting from the ashes.
Yes. Big statement that they are already in the ashes.
Right. With our help. So basically, we developed a product called Phoenix Comply, and that's a SaaS. It's a SaaS model where you we install an adapter on your core banking, and then you manage the communication with the regulator in a very automated manner. So it helps you comply with regulations. And the other thing is we provided something called Phoenix Connect, and that Connect is actually the aggregator. So instead of doing testing and production offline, we now are connecting with your environment as a bank. And once you're done with the testing, you can go in production on the same platform, on the same environment. And we qualify the fintechs that can actually integrate, and there are API specs and all of that. So that's where we actually develop the relationship between the banks and the fintechs. Now, the regulators, we like to lobby with regulators, and we like to share knowledge with regulators, and they have proven over the years to be very much adaptive to advice and feedback, and that helps a lot. So we've partnered with regulators in certain markets like Bahrain, given that Bahrain was way advanced than everybody else when it comes to open banking regulations. We also partnered with many other regulators like ESCA in the UAE, like PCMA in Palestine, like CBE, Central Bank of Egypt in Egypt. We've worked with so many regulators. And also we are on the round table when it comes to discussing certain, futuristic matters related to regulations. And the team that we hired at Fintech Galaxy has more than 10 years of experience in open banking. So what better can it get that you have the local experience, you have the international market knowledge, the product knowledge, and you have the trust. Here comes the trust. You have the trust of the regulator and the trust with the banker or the financial institution.
Yeah. Thank you for mentioning trust, because I lead my presentations, a lot of my futuristic presentations, with the word trust. And that it was always important, but now it's at an absolute premium. That is something that is quite unique, and the pandemic taught us that. A lot of the new developments have taught us that. FTX has taught us that, and all of these key elements are coming together. Now, it's interesting, this whole process of innovation. In my day-to-day work, look at transformation. And that is innovation on steroids. And then actually have to start putting that into a framework that people can actually relate to and understand. So I have a golden rule, and that rule is 70-20-10, which is, I think Google uses that. That 70% of the time you spend on your core business, you optimize it, you enhance it, you 10x it, but within your existing business, you do not impact your base. 20% of the time you extend into new ideas, new elements, new business extensions. And 10% of the time is moonshot thinking, something you've never done before, something you would really like to do and try out. And so with some of the banks that I have been working with in terms of transformation, they've actually taken on my advice on this, on the 20% and the 10%. And this is a bank in Nigeria, the largest bank there. And they've asked me to come in and sit on their advisory board because I helped to give birth to that. And it started with exactly where you started. So I said, financial inclusion is critical. And the second one was women, that there is a nation of 200 million people, of which over 100 million are women. And in the rural areas, women are the powerhouse of entrepreneurship. And the third is basically microdonation and micro components also. And last is financial literacy. So literacy, microdonation, diversity and inclusion, and basically just financial inclusion. And based on that, they're creating their new fintech platform, and that's how they're building it out. So that was literally that change in action. And I'm sharing this story because when I went back and I thought about it, and I spoke to the CEO, and I just said, you know, how did you get to this point and not get confused or you know, challenging ideas in the middle? And he said that we went back to the 70-20-10 rule. We kept this in the 20%, sometimes even in the 10%. So a lot of the things you're saying with Finex, with the Fintech Galaxy Connect and so on, is perhaps this is what you're also doing, is really focusing on the 20 and the 10. And it becomes easy for the banks to work on, it becomes easy for the regulators to say, okay, I'm only testing it on the side. I'm not changing my whole game. I'm not putting all my customers on that. Perhaps this is the moment where we'll have to start collaborating again. We have been doing it. We've been doing it on the media side, but perhaps on this side too. How do you see the regulators responding? And I know you said something, you know, very positive about them, that they are adaptable and they're responding. But really, in this environment of crypto and Bitcoin meltdowns and frauds and so many regulators are now, whether it's large accounting firms and audit firms who are being penalized, large banks, corporations, VCs, and so on. So in this environment, we want to build trust. You want to have the regulators come on board and really become an integral part of this whole process. How do we do that? How do you do it? How do I do it? And I'm really speaking from the heart and sort of saying, what do we need to do as responsible people to help to build that future?
See, I deal with regulators and I do categorize them in my mind and in my strategy as a company, just like I deal with humans. Regulators as a regulatory body, they act very much like a human. And I'll tell you what, you have regulators like Bahrain, for example, where very much out there. They are hungry to learn, to develop, to show. It's a small country and it's you know, it's a very limited resources, but they are open, you know, give them an idea and they run with it. There is another regulator like Saudi who realized that, you know that person who is actually very much has, you know, 20-30 years of his life already laid down for him, and he's got the resources and he's got the actually mindset to why reinvent the wheel? I'm gonna go and get the best in class globally, learn from them and deploy it in-house. And they do it with very much risk management. And so it's a very nice model. I mean, what they have done, even though it was late to the game, at some point people were giving up on Saudi regulators. When they joined the club, it was something out of this world, okay? In the level of, and I know it from, I'm talking here from a very technical and practical perspective, their open banking lab, their documentation, their onboarding process, their assessment is just incredible. So it's like that bamboo where you don't see it under the ground for 5 years and suddenly it just goes 100 meters overnight, right? So that's the Saudi model. And then you have other regulators without naming names where they don't even admit it to themselves. I'm good, I'm okay, I don't need it, I'm fine, I know how to do it on my own. And this is just like any human. You come and tell him, how can I help you? And they start questioning, you know, I don't need help. I know how to do it. I'm already good. And even though some of these regulators, they do get offers from the World Bank and from the IMF and the AMF and GIZ and ERBD and you name it, offering to help them and build things for them, they just are short-sighted. And unfortunately, some of the people there in this regulatory body, they want their fame more than something that's sustainable. So you have all types of and you have other regulators like Egypt, for example, where they take very slow systematic moves because they have much bigger problems to handle than when your house is on fire, you don't worry about decorating it. You just go and turn off the fire. But they are moving in the right direction. They move steadily, they move consciously, they listen to you, they want your advice. So it is different types of regulators, different mechanisms. And sometimes I do give up on regulators when I see that I'm hitting a brick wall. Later on, they come back saying, okay, now we're listening, tell us how we can build a regulatory sandbox, or how can we do a national platform, or how we can do this and that. So they eventually catch up with you, but at some point you're just tired and depleted. Yes, regulators, it's a very tough job for them, very tough job. I mean, imagine somebody who's meant for years and years and decades to design a fiscal policy for the country and a monetary policy for the country. That's what they do for a living. Fiscal, monetary. Are you fiscal? Are you monetary? And then you have a new currency that comes to play, and that's not in the books. Like, what's going on here? And then there is a new, innovation campaign and, tsunami that's coming to take the country and the financial sector by storm, and they're not even ready for that. They're not trained to do it. So let's give them some time, and we gave them some time. So let's give them some time to understand, absorb. And I do recommend, and I do like the conservative approach, honestly speaking, because as you just mentioned, Yani, all this, those bubbles that are blowing out globally, these are lessons for us to learn and just to be careful. And I remember Supnendu, our friend, if you are still in touch with him, Supnendu.
Oh, yes.
Mass.
Yes.
He once said, I don't regulate innovation, I regulate financial services. I regulate an instrument. If you want to use, dynamite, rocket to make it work, or you want to use blockchain, you want to use artificial intelligence, you want to use whatever you want to use, it's your thing. What matters to me is I am regulating financial securities and instruments. And that's the right attitude.
Right. Thank you for that. I think a very deep dive into that, but I think it's really important. One more area that I'd like to cover with you, and then we'll start sort of winding it down. And that is the hybrid ecosystem that we are building around us. You've obviously got the incumbent banks, and they have the vast majority of the business, which is being eaten into by the fintechs. But then you also have the unicorns, the Ant Financials of the world, and they are also in that fintech space. And last but not the least, corporations, because now anybody can become a fintech because everything is available as a service. So the way I see it is that there's this new hybrid system in 10 years' time, which is individual companies, unicorns, fintechs, and of course, some of the banks. And all of them not potentially, but should be serving us, the customer, based around our utilities and our needs. But this is my vision of the future. What is your voice of the future when it relates to this kind of hybrid structure?
See, so many things will change, okay? And how we deliver a service will look like nothing today. What we deliver and the fundamentals of what we deliver will always be the same. They will not change. So banking will change, definitely. Banking will change. Less branches, more digital, more innovation. But nobody's going to come and do the banking job. Unfortunately, people don't understand fintechs or non-fintech. I'm a fintech, and I do believe in partnership with banks. I will never come and start dealing with corporate banking or things that banks do. So banks are needed and will always be with us, and they are a major component of the ecosystem. Fintechs are needed because fintechs provide a different customer experience. They provide a different way of So you're providing, let's say you're providing a credit score, you're still providing a credit score in a different way. It's using different tools. Okay.
Indeed,
so
but also the young people are not trusting the major financial institutions, and the major financial institutions, sadly, banks and so on, they all get penalties and all this kind of stuff going on, and they just continue in business. Everything is cool.
Everybody's getting. See, everybody is getting penalties.
Yes.
Fintechs are only trusted when they start behaving like banks. Look at the world outside. Which are the digital banks or the challenger banks that are making profit that justifies the valuation?
Yeah, agreed. No, hardly.
Okay.
Yes.
Valuations are totally out of the norm. They're totally inflated. They're totally non-reasonable whatsoever. There's no common sense at all. Yes, nobody is, nobody's saying that banks won't fall, but then banks fall due to mismanagement. Due to being stagnant for a long time. But I would trust a bank more than I would trust a digital bank that I don't even deal with a human. Technology fails you many times. Cyber crimes are on the rise. So let's be realistic here, okay? Let's be realistic. Banks are staying, fintechs are growing, platforms are eating everybody's strategy for breakfast. Yes, it is a bloodshed, and it's fun. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing, yeah.
Mirna, we've been talking a lot about the business side, the technology, your profession. Let's talk about you and your view of the future. How do you feel as a mother today? Is your young daughter, who I can hear in the background, is the schooling and is all of the technologies and everything else preparing her for the future as we know it?
See, nothing really prepares you for the future. A lot happens at home. Let's not underestimate what the kids experience on a daily basis with home, with how their parents behave, with how we teach them how to think. And I mean, schools try to catch up with a lot of technologies, but even those who are doing, in university, my son is in university in Arizona, and from the day he started doing engineering, mechanical engineering, until he graduates in 4 years, maybe what he's studying today will be obsolete.
Absolutely, not maybe, almost and certainly.
And my daughter, she's studying in the UK, and she keeps asking me, like, why do I have to calculate all these, mathematical formulas when I can do them on Excel? And I tell her, I don't know, like, I did the same when I did my MBA. They probably teach you how to think logically, but when machines start doing everything for us, even writing chats, like what are we benefiting from universities for? So the idea here is we have to teach our kids how to survive tough situations, how to not worry about falling, but focus on getting up again. We should teach our kids how to be curious and how to be ambitious and how to never stop learning, because learning is ongoing until you're dying. You should learn how to die gracefully. So it's very important. It's very important that we teach our kids how to not be stagnant and to continue growing and continue developing. Maybe today there's AI, maybe tomorrow there's something totally virtual that we have no clue what that is. And we can't predict the future other than, I mean, there are so many predictions. A few days back, we issued a prediction for 2023 in open banking. Okay, fine, it's fun. And it's some of the things are no-brainers, like, blockchain and AI and multi-cloud, I don't know what, and then, embedded finance and DeFi and all of that. But then this is this is the future next year.
Yep.
And even when you hire somebody now, you shouldn't ask him, what's your plan in 5 years? Because that's a totally wrong question and very obsolete. Like, who knows?
Yes, indeed. And I have the same, and we are doing some work on the education and learning side. So it was education versus future learning, and building resilience, building empathy, building humanity, building passion, having a purpose in your life to drive through that, building skills and tools, critical thinking. Those are the kinds of things that will keep us going for the future, as opposed to learning specific things. You need to learn specific
generations change. Generation, like my older, you know what she once told me, why don't they have ATM machines that actually come to your house like Carrefour? Was it Carrefour?
Yes.
So why don't they have ATM machines? And you know, my little one, what she told her, why do we need cash? Like cash? Yucky. Cash.
Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
so you still, your kids are even changing the way they think. One wants a different customer experience because she's very, you know, she's 17, 18, but the little one who's 12 thinks, why do I need cash? I could just tap and go.
Yes, I mean, the new alpha generation that's coming, which is born in 2010 and beyond, they were born in a networked environment, in a platformed environment, in an app environment, in an iPhone environment. So they think differently to the Gen Z, and forget the millennials. They're out of they're oldies now. We used to worry about the millennials, and now no more millennials. So I think those are some of the challenges that we have. So in terms of your voice for the future, what is that voice that we need to remember? So let's assume that we recap this thing in 5 years, 7 years, 10 years time. What is that voice that you want to project today into the future that we would like to remember?
See, if you look in hindsight, what you are doing today and what you have today and what you are capable of doing today, you never ever dreamed of 5 years back. True. I personally, I didn't even think that I could do half of what I can do today. So I would rather avoid getting into the, you know, the quicksand of anticipating what technology will come to place. What scares me is people losing their values and ethics, and we start fighting more. We forget the principles in life. We forget the basic humanity rights. We forget all these things. And I remember, Tariq, on one presentations, one of the events, you had that slide that says, the future is not technology, the future is a humanity. And this is very powerful. This is very powerful. And what is a humanity? Humanity is how we deal with each other, how we trust each other, how we give an opportunity to each other, how we treat people fairly, inclusion, diversity, integrity. This is what matters, and this is what we should respect. Yeah. This is what we should teach our kids, and we should teach our team members as well and colleagues. Now, if we, you know, after 2 years have a brand new currency that takes over the US dollar, and we start, you know, we stop trading US dollar yen and US dollar euro, I mean, okay, fine, we'll deal with that when it happens. But sure. What matters is being honest and being, you know, being truthful and respectful. And this is what scares me. Losing these basic principles is scary. And I remember once Fadi Ghandour told me, he said, Mirna, remember, there's no glory in entrepreneurship. By the time you reach one mountain peak, you will realize that it's only the beginning of another mountain peak, and you don't even have time to breathe, celebrate. You just want to keep fighting, keep fighting, keep fighting, until once you reach your, I mean, once we become the Fadi Ghandours of the region, then we're so tired that, you know, we don't even know how to celebrate. So it's tough. It's tough. Entrepreneurship is tough. That's why we should enjoy the journey rather than keep thinking about, you know, the end game. Okay, the end game is nice, but enjoying the journey and having fun, appreciating our parents, overnight we lose them. And I mean, you lost your mom recently, and I know how destroying that could be, because I lost my parents as well. And these things we can never rewind. I can live without AI. I can not live without my parents unless I train myself to, you know, to enjoy every minute with them, so that when they leave us, we don't have anything that we've missed. So these are the things that I keep telling my kids and my friends, and relationships, human connections. I mean, these are beautiful things.
Yes, indeed they are, and it's a beautiful way that you've articulated that. And I mean, I see the connection between technology and digital transformation, which is now shaping society, which is also shaping humanity. And what we need to do is to make that humanity the center of our lives, which is exactly what you were saying. And I'm a great believer in metaphors, not end games, but metaphors and words that will keep developing in our minds. And because they create this, they permeate throughout our thinking. I use words like abundance. I use words like exponential. I think of creation of new opportunities. I'm by definition a very optimistic person, and I generally believe in how the unique power that humans have to be able to find solutions and to make a better world. And this is what I work for. Sometimes I'm unrealistic. Sometimes I'm not really doing too well. People say, "Oh, you can get a nice job, or you can get this and that," but I still sort of continue doing stuff like this. But I find this very meaningful, and our conversation today has opened up certain elements in my heart, and I know that I need to connect with you again very quickly. Any final word from your side, Mirna, to hundreds of people who will be on this podcast? Not hundreds, but certainly between 80 to 100. These are special voices, but the 1,000, hopefully millions of people that watch this. What is your final statement to them as we close?
See, the voice of the future is what actually starts today. It is the voice of the future, but it's actually how we behave today, what we say today, what we teach everybody today. And I do thank you for giving us this opportunity to say what we had in mind. This is a very interesting forum, and I know you very well, Tariq, and you bring your heart and mind and everything that you have into anything you do. And I'm sure that you have just like you created a lot of mad people around you in this part of the world, you're going to create a lot of voices that care and that matters. And yes, it's not about how much you know in terms of technology, or how much you are worth as an entrepreneur. These are very insignificant details that we have to deal with. But what matters is how human is your voice. That's going to make a difference in the world around you. And yes, I'm glad you didn't ask me about me being a woman, because honestly, it's the same voice. It's just nicer and softer than a man's voice. Other than that, trust me, there's no difference. There's no difference whatsoever. Yes, being a mompreneur is something I'm super proud of. Being somebody who actually survived a lot of difficulties in life is something I'm super proud of. I'm proud of my story. And I always tell bits and pieces of stories to my colleagues. Some of them are funny, some of them makes people cry, and it's all for one purpose in life, which is to make that difference in people's lives and to teach them lessons, maybe to share some shortcuts of lessons that we have learned the hard way. So thank you for this amazing opportunity, and I'm sure that it's going to be as effective as you've always been.
Thank you very much indeed. I am humbled by a lot of your wonderful comments, so thank you for that, and your humanity and your friendship. That's what I cherish the most. So thank you for that. Appreciate it.